before we begin the actual service itself, Kenneth is very proud of his country, service, and everything else. It's going to military honors to take care of.
I don't have any audio.
Maybe seated.
לדוד אדוני רואי לא אחסר בינות דשא ירביצי מנוחות נפשי ישובי נפשי ישובי ינפני במגלי צדק למען Salma bet lo צרוך לפני שולחן נגד צהרי תשנת ושבת ראשי כוסי רוויה בכתוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי
I was up here, allow people to be unmasked up here, so make sure you can be understood. Cantor was a couple feet further back because singing actually is a little bit more forceful. So trying to abide by everyone's safety. The words that Hazan sang, the 23rd Psalm, many of you know them. In the English, the words that say, yea, though I walk through the shadow of death. And for those who were with Ken during this last year, kind of felt like that valley a little bit. I remember Ellen in the hospital with you, Michael, and Green, the day after he returned and diagnosed it. Be able to have that year, be able to want to hold on to somebody and not let them go. And it's to know how challenging it is, and yet it's love that allows us sometimes to let go. The Psalm speaks of giving strength and comfort, because that's what we all need now. It's hard to believe, and it's not hard to believe, but it's been a journey. But the facts, the reality is still difficult. So that's what the 23rd Psalm is trying to tell us, that we have to acknowledge that reality, as painful as it is, and that we need that strength and comfort in this moment. Ellen, for you, Jaco, the last 11 years, 3 daughters as well, Kimberly, Jenna, Kimberly, and Nicole, grandchildren, Henry, Rhea, as well as Sloan and Quinn. You're watching over there. Michael, Horace and Maureen, Justin, Christina, Steve, Michelle, brother-in-law Jacob, Stacy, and all of you who are gathered here, those of you who are able to share. These are the most challenging of times. To be able to mourn somebody with the mass on, diminished numbers, for people to be able to watch over live streaming, not what anybody imagined. And yet we acknowledge what we have. That's the way that Ken was. Ken wasn't one to fight against reality. He fought for life, but knew you couldn't fight against the odds. He was just a man of logic. Those words we share, Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. Prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You've anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We're going to have some people coming forward to speak. And as I call you forward, if you'll come up, Ellen will begin with you, and then Michael, and Jacob, and then Justin. And then I'll call some of the others later. Ellen, please. Speak as loud. I know it should be hard, but as loud as you can for them if you can.
Kenneth was a very special human being. We had the good fortune of meeting and falling in love. He changed so many lives. He had to give. It wasn't easy for him to receive. He had genuine qualities and mixture of always helping others, friends and strangers alike. He found himself walking he would turn around and quickly offer help. I know if not for COVID, it would be standing room only at his funeral. He was so well liked by everyone who had the blessing and opportunity to meet him. Kenneth was a phenomenal dentist. He had wonderful skills and an ease with patients, a testimony to his long and fulfilling 40-year practice. He served in the military. He enlisted in the Army after dental school and served his time receiving an honorable discharge. He had exceptional and remarkable skills in various areas. He could have chosen another career path, but he chose dentistry because the story he told me is when he was 12 years old, he needed a root canal. And the dentist, as he says, quote, took him out of pain, unquote. That's how his passion for dentistry, all based on an immense amount of genuine compassion. He never wanted another to suffer. Ken had so many stories, whether he was traveling or home. He lived an exciting and full life. He made that happen. One of his last words to me was, Ellen, never take life for granted. It's very precious. I only learned that through Ken's deep, full, unconditional love he had for me. Never criticizing, only love in its most truest remember the first time my mom mentioned Ken. I was at school in Illinois, and my mom was keeping me company on the phone as I walked home from class. We were catching up and sharing how our weeks had been when she giddily told me she had met a boy. There was more happiness and excitement in her voice as she detailed their first date than I had ever heard from her in a very long time. For some, there can be discomfort and even pain when a parent remarries. But when it came to my mom and Ken, there was only happiness. To watch my mom fall in love and develop an unbreakable partnership with a man as thoughtful, loving, and generous as Ken can only be described as a privilege, a model of the kind of love worth working to sustain each and every day. Because I was already out of the house when my mom and Ken began their relationship, I did not get to know Ken as quickly as I would have otherwise. But nonetheless, in 2010, when my grand plans for living in Tokyo fell apart, Ken drove with my mom to LAX, which is a mitzvah all its own, picked me up, and I lived in their home for the better part of a year. No questions asked, just hospitality, graciousness, and understanding. That was Ken, giving so fully of himself. Whoever I am honored, but mostly I am forever and will be grateful to Ken. Grateful for the love you and my mom shared, for the adventures you took together, the happiness and peace you brought to their life. And while there is anger and sadness, there are years and there is also profound happiness and gratitude in reflecting on the love and life you created together. Even in your death, I truly believe that you continue to give my mom the strength she needs, both in this moment and in the moments to come. And I cannot think of a better way for me to honor your memory than to live each day fully and act more selflessly as you did. Thank you, Ken. You have touched the lives of so many. We are grateful to you and continue to be shaped by your strength and your love.
That's it. Kimberly, that was just beautiful. Michael? Oh, please. Well, I'll try and keep this on my end. It's not unusual or to outlive one's parents. You sort of expect it. But you don't expect it. It was my kid. Or difference in age walking around. Once you're out, college, anybody, yeah, so it's not only only brother and best friend, but also to lose a contemporary because it sort of reminds you of where the sand is in your personal hourglass. All the qualities that Ellen mentioned in her very was a complete human being. He had a moral compass, protective, was a perfectionist in his care of others, and at the same time he was compassionate in his care. He took care of many people who otherwise might miss him deeply.
awfully glad that he met Ellen. It took long enough for him to find his true love. And I'm sorry they didn't have more than their 11 years together. But it made the remainder of his life, those 11 years, very happy. I'll miss him. I'll carry his memory with me in my heart. I can't recall us ever having a major disagreement past.
Jakob, please.
Looks like Ken, doesn't it?
Maybe just taller.
Really changed me. He showed me how to be a good, capable person in the world. Father to me, and he was a fantastic father. Gave so much to me. Gave me my education. Showed me the world. Showed me how to plan a trip and take lots of photos afterwards and spend months putting them in an album. Showed me how to use tools to fix things. We built a lot of things together. And showed me how to take care of our dog, Jan. He showed me how to live on a boat. Showed me how to plant a cactus. How to grow an outlet. Ken also showed me how to deal with adversity, how to forgive. He showed me how to be good to people, to be generous, because Ken was so generous, such a good person. He showed me how to raise a child. Loved me like his own child. And I loved him. He was such a loving and solid man. He was so reliable. He was like a rock. I truly admired him. And I miss him. And I will miss him. So thank you for being in my life, Ken. I couldn't have asked
Now, could we sit here and hold this for me? Thanks. As some of you may now know, I'm Ken's favorite and only blood nephew. It's really difficult for me to comprehend that Ken will no longer be with us. While I've experienced some significant losses in my life from close friends and family, I've been fortunate not to have a loss of a person who I've known for my whole life, from the time I was born, and Ken was that person. When I was young, I always referred to Ken as my favorite uncle. I'm 7 years old, so
All right, take a breath.
seven. He gave me my first electronics kit, which was probably way too advanced for me at that time, but it sparked an interest in mastering life.
to my career and to many of my passions. Over the years, Ken and I have had so many hobbies in common. Includes working with model trains and ham radio and photography and working on our homes and electronics. Over the last 25 years, Ken and I have had a train set that has gone back and forth between our families as we haven't been able to do it and the other one has been. Like was made very clear, it's always been here for its family. My sister and I were very young. We were supposed to fly to visit my parents in Lake Tahoe, and our plane got snowed in. Ken jumped right up and said, "Oh, I'll take the kids." No problem. And of course, Ken didn't have much experience with kids at that point in his life. He thought, a 10-hour drive, no problem. We can be there tonight. Anyway, 3 or 4 hours of bickering later, my sister and I started to tell Ken how we're required to stop in Fresno and spend the night. That's the way it always worked. He said, no, we'll be there later tonight. This is no problem. Well, another hour or two, we worked him down. And he pulled off the freeway in Fresno. We stayed in the Piccadilly Inn and got to swim in the pool that we always like to swim. I remember Ken telling my parents that this was a nightmare of a trip, but to my sister and I, it was a fond memory and a fun adventure with Uncle Ken. Well, Ken and I have not lived near each other in the last many years. It's always great to see Ken, or it always was. Ken's easy personality and sense of humor that so many people have talked about here today made him a joy to be around, and everybody felt that way. All of Ken's friends and family are grieving him today, and his absence will never feel quite right. As my dad mentioned, that same pain that I feel losing someone that I've known my whole life, I can only imagine, Dan, what it's like for you. And I'm sorry that you have to go through this. And Ellen, I am so sorry that you lost. I know that the time you and Ken had together was not long enough. But I also know that Ken was so happy and so in love and so lucky to have you in his life. And from the times that I've spent with you and Ken, it was very apparent to me that your love for each other, although not long enough, was the most significant part of his life. We're blessed to have you in our family. Anyway, to Ken.
Colleagues and friends, so in this order, Arjang, and then Bob, and then Jim, and then Stacy.
Hi everyone, I'm AJ. I'm Ken's best friend and co-business partner. I was introduced to Ken about 6 years ago. At the time I was just graduated dental school, had a couple of years of experience, and wanted to get my own practice, and down and retiring and phasing out of dentistry. So we had a mutual friend. The mutual friend called me, gave Ken's number. I called Kenny. It was a Friday night. I remember we started talking. We were both getting ready for Shabbat, and we hit it off. We started talking about Israel and how he's planning a big trip and how much he loves dentistry, and we decided to meet on a Sunday. So Friday we talked, Sunday we met up. I remember it was me and the mutual friend who introduced us. We went to the dental office, and this highly energetic guy comes, opens the door with white beard, this blue scrubs, and blue eyes matching his blue scrubs. Opens the door, starts looks around the office, saying how much he loves it, and how much he loves to travel and build model trains, and how he from New York and took out his phone and showed off Ellen, and how they're planning a Hawaii trip, Israel trip, and then they started talking more about dentistry and this and that. So I quietly whispered to my friend who was accompanying me and had introduced us. I'm like, "Are you sure this guy's ready to retire? He has more energy than both of us." And I was right. He did not retire. We worked side by side for 5 years. And it was a couple of days when I realized I had very big shoes to fill. He was extremely knowledgeable about everything. Could have been history, engineering, geography, Hinduism, anything you name it, he had something to say and he could talk hours. I always heard him when he was in the operatory working on patients and they would start talking for hours. Every time I would pass by, the patient's reaction was, "Oh wow, how did you do that? Oh my God." Everyone was impressed by him. And he wasn't only a dentist, he was also a handyman. Anything that broke in the office, you give it to Kenny. He somehow, some way had a solution for it. He would fix it. It wouldn't look pretty, but he would fix it. One time I asked him, "What do you usually do when you go home besides hanging out with Ellen?" He goes, "I do construction." Like, in my mind, I thought maybe, little small projects in the backyard, maybe putting up a fence. And then he takes out his phone, he starts showing me pictures of a full-blown kitchen he's building with cabinets, counter, backsplash, flooring, putting up walls. I'm like, wow, Kenny. Kenny was the most selfless person I knew. He was a generous giver and never expected anything in return. From day one, he always told me, "I'm just here to make you successful. You just tell me what to do." His love for Ellen was like no other. He always talked about you. Every time we would go to lunch, he would show me pictures. He would tell me about how he's planning another Hawaii trip. I want to express my deepest condolences to Ellen and the Hirsch family. Kenny was a mensch like no other. He was a mentor, father, and a best friend to me. Lastly, Kenny, I consider myself lucky to have met you and cherish every memory we had together. You set the bar really high for me, and I should always try to be a fraction of what you were. I miss you.
Bob? Bob here.
I'm Bob today.
You are Bob today.
Bob tried desperately to get here. He had canceled his whole afternoon, but he had two rather sick patients that he sedated and they weren't ready for recovery. So Bob, he jotted a few things. I will make a few remarks. Bob knew Ken for 30 years. Bob came to the Valley, opened his oral surgery practice, and he left for a while. In 2014, he came back to work with Jim Jensen. And that's when I got to meet Ken. Because as I was in the office helping out from time to time, Ken was always popping up to talk about a patient. to say, you need to see this patient now. And he cared so much about his patients. And his patients loved him. I remember Bob started, I think some of the people watch commercials, it's this clear choice, this all on floor, this complete replacement. No one in this area, very few stepped up. Right in. He understood it. Bob said he was one of the first who stepped forward. I have met Ellen many trips. And all I can say is, Ken was so concerned and always making sure she was okay. She was what can she do? She had, I think I've never seen anybody pack so much for 6 hours, but she had everything that Ken could possibly ever need to make sure that he was comfortable during his therapy. Bob did write just a few words. It's the home of the medic. Ken would have been called Doc by the soldiers. He was a true soldier. Soldiers were lucky to have Ken, and I will miss him.
Jim?
Oh.
Jim Jen's home. I personal relationship, I believe, I can say. I'm a very emotional person. I apologize. I really can't add too much to what's been said already. I met Ken in 1987. One of the first people I met in the building. He had a general practice. Referred patients back and forth. That's just my introduction. Another specialist in our building, Dr. James Beller, who was an endodontist, wanted us to statement that he wrote. Is that all right? Jim was in the building longer than I was. So he says, and I'm going to read this as he wrote it in the first person, but it's written by James Beller. 40 years ago, a gifted dentist moved into the office suite down the hall. He was embraced by the profession, trusted by his patients, and appreciated greatly by his neighbors in the building. He quickly established himself as a generous colleague and a loyal friend. In the profession, Ken was a great supporter of practice and a source of enjoyment for my staff. I can still picture him standing by the front desk laughing and telling stories. He did the same thing in my office. We all shared a bit with Ken over 40 years of weekly, if not daily visits. We shared stories of our time in the military. I think Beller was Air Force. Personally, Ken had considerable talents and interests outside of dentistry. He was a skilled contractor, not only designed and built bathrooms, but also the entire kitchen. We heard about that. Having seen his handiwork firsthand, I can tell you he had a good fallback if the dentist gig hadn't worked out. In addition to building the kitchen, he and Ellen also enjoyed filling it with an exceptional food and drink during our Jim's wife, wife and I are lucky to have had Ken in our lives. We miss the dinners. This is business. Now, I, good friend. And a whole lot said he was a mentor. He was a very compassionate person. He was well loved. He was loyal. He was so generous with his times. Sometimes I would have general dentists send me problems they didn't know how to handle. It wasn't Ken's patient, but Ken would solve the problem. So I thought maybe I'd just say give a couple of anecdotes very briefly. One was, as was said, Ken practiced dentistry in New York and Queens for a few years before he came to California, where he spent most of his career. And Ken told me the story, and I corroborated this by talking to the patients. He was driving down the 101 freeway, and he saw people in a car in the next lane waving frantically, and he thought, well, were they having car trouble or something? And then he says, those are my patients from Queens. As they pull over, reintroduce themselves, you're here, you're here. And they were Ken's patients for forever, I guess. And Ken referred them to me, and they told me the story. The other story I have is, Ken and a few of us would have lunch very regularly, maybe several times a week, and kind of a rotating group of people. And so I remember soon after he met Ellen, you could tell this was something special because she was and how smart Ellen was, how lovely she was, and all this stuff. It's true. And but then he had to say, and you know what else, Jim? She's younger than you. It's kind of hurt. A little bit, but it's hard for me even to imagine being in a world without Ken physically present. He will be in all of our memories forever, and sorely missed.
Your life. Was the kindest, most gentle man that I had ever met. Just repeat the same words that everybody. I met Ken 13 years ago. It felt like I had known him. He was a mensch, as has been said, a good neshama, a sweet soul. And he just exuded goodness with every ounce of his being.
I worked for the JCCs for 31 years consecutively, and then many people know the recession hit and JCCs folded. And for the first time in my life, I was without any dental insurance, and I needed some work done. And Ken, no question, come to my office. Never made me feel like, you know, I was a private pay customer, patient of his, always. Backing up a little bit, I had not even met Ken yet, and he was already helping me as I needed to move out of an apartment pretty quickly. Ellen told Ken what was going on in my life, that I needed some help. And the next thing I know, the two of them pulled up in front of my apartment. That's where I met Ken. He was a rare, rare human being. And through the years, I was blessed to spend some of my most joyous moments with Ken and Ellen. On their boat in Westlake, Ken loved to be on that boat. And so many evenings having dinner at their house in that great kitchen that he built, drinking wine around the fire pit, or going to a vineyard. And I would often joke to Ken that their Westlake house on the island was my summer home because I was there so often. And it felt like home, and it felt like my home. He was a true blessing to those who were fortunate enough to know him. And I'm one of those fortunate people. Even during this last year, after he was diagnosed and ill, he remained selfless and giving to everybody and to myself. I was scheduled for some pretty intense dental work at the time and wanted to make sure that I was getting treatment. I happened to know my dentist. I mentioned to my dentist Ken's name, and coincidentally, Dr. Levy, Ken, when Dr. Levy was looking for a practice, Ken allowed him to practice in his office to build up his clientele. Just said, Dr. Levy, do you know Ken Hirsch? And oh my God. So he wanted to make sure I was getting that proper treatment. I made a phone call to Dr. Levy to discuss the treatment plan. He even had Dr. Levy send my x-rays over at home to look at them. Another time, Ken found out during this last year when he was ill that I possibly didn't have someone to accompany me for a medical procedure. And as weak as he was feeling from his chemo, he made it clear to me. He got a little upset with me that he would be there to take me if I needed it, and I better tell him if I needed somebody to take me. And that was the kindest. Proverbs.
I got to know Ken, my one criticism, my one uncertainty about him was he always made me feel inadequate. He was just too good at too many things. And how could somebody be so good at so many things? He could fix anything. It may not be pretty, but the reason he never gave up. That was what his spirit was about. He was going to figure it out no matter what it took. I happen to be teaching today, and Gloria said to me that, Sans, that their place has not been the same since you haven't been there because nobody to fix it up. Said, Kenny, when I said that he had passed away, she said, Dr. Hirsch, they used our place and we fixed everything that happened there. It was just such a beautiful sentiment for somebody to remember. He he's touched so many people's lives. And that's what's truly a testament to him. Whether it was professionally as a dentist, whether it was in friendships, avid fisherman who loved going to Alaska, golfer, photographer, gardener, contractor, yachtsman, avid reader, master of trivia. Don't try to out trivia him. And it's in that quick sense of humor. People have spoken about so many parts of his life. I just want to mention two things. One is, Elena, people mentioned how last years of his life, the last 13 years were golden years in many ways for him. Golden didn't mean you had to retire. It meant that you had to find the gold in your life, and that's what he found. Do you all know the story about number 45? Can I, this is only with your permission. So Ken tells the story. They met on J-Date, and Ken had, whether it was coffee or dinner, something small, something big, had gone through 44 previous encounters. He had said when he met Ellen that if she hadn't worked out as number 45, that he was giving up. And he'd spend the rest of his life just single and happy. But number 45 was a lucky number. I know you love Torah and you love the connections. And, you know, God comes to Abraham and Sarah later in life and said, Lech lecha, go forth. Go forth from your father's homeland, from your father's house, from your place, and you go to the place that I will show you. And I thought about the journey that you and Ken have had. Who knew where it would go 13 years ago? He was the one who knew first, as I recall, right? The 45 is a lucky number. It took him a little while to work on you, not too long though, but you quickly became as one. And it's what I love about this command, Lech lecha, because even though Abraham is traveling with Sarah, it's in the singular, because they were as one. I think that's how we all thought about you and Ken. That somehow there was this beautiful synergy that the two of you shared in life. And that everything that you enjoyed doing, your trips together, many of them that were mentioned in terms of wine country, Israel, Europe, and you love sharing with friends, the great conversations. You could talk with Ken, you and anybody forever, because he had so much wisdom and love to share. You two were soulmates for sure. And during this last year, you were not going to leave his side, no matter what it meant. Somehow, you wanted to fulfill everything he had given to you. He had shared so much. He was always there for you. And somehow, you took his message of appreciating every moment. You just wanted to be there with him for every moment that you could. And we all know that. We all know that the love that you shared was there till the very end. And Ken, who did not want to pass away on your anniversary, who held out in some magical way that somehow there should be a distinction in your anniversary, that you should remember the love. And at the end, you're always going to light now a Yortzeit candle, the Yisker candle, and remember his life. And that somehow they're going to be tied together. And I just think that's such a beautiful image, that you're going to remember the beauty first, and then the sense of the light that he gave, not only to you, but to everybody. His name was Svi. And I don't know if you know that. Svi, when I asked you his full name, I was expecting you to say Svi Hirsch, because that's very common. Svi is a deer in Hebrew, and Hirsch is a deer, which is where you get your name from, in Yiddish, German. And when I was trying to describe Ken, I thought of somebody who was so this conviction and belief and passion about life, and yet was able to acknowledge other people and where they were and who didn't like to create conflict. As I tried to think of an image long before I thought about the Simi and Hirsch and everything, I thought, you know, somebody with his deep conviction sometimes can be like a bull. You know, they can be a little bit too strong. Sometimes, by the way, people just give way, though, in other ways, and they're too much like a sheep, if you will. I thought about Simi. I thought about that deer. Deers are elegant. The way they do things are just right, but they're sturdy animals. I thought Simi Hirsch, this beautiful memory of a man who just lived life with an elegance that we would all love to be able to live by. To be able to have a sense of conviction, to know what he believed, and he had strong convictions. Just try talking politics with him. Just try. What I loved about him was I never felt that he pushed anything on. What I loved about him was that he always wanted the discussion. He believed that discourse was the way that people would grow and share. And I think that he, most of all, made all of us feel better about ourselves and that we could be better people. That's the gift he leaves behind. Zichrono livracha, his memory is an absolute blessing. Workers come and they're going to lower the casket at this time. We're going to stand for the El Malei Rachamim prayer for the departed. So I ask you all this time, if you will, to please rise.
Malei Rachamim, Bamaroni, Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashechim. B'malot kedoshim u'tahorim Yisuchar harakiyam asirim Et nishmat David ve'eda she'alach לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולם. בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו. על משכבו ונאמר אמן.
Mighty God, full of compassion, we ask that you now embrace in your holy presence the soul of our beloved Kenneth Hirsch, Simi and David Be'eda. Now returning to the source of all life. God, we ask that you take this soul and give it the peace that he deserves in your eternal embrace. May his soul now be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We're going to do the Kriya, the tearing with the family who has written this moment. The carrying the Kriya is the tearing of the heart, symbolic of it. And so it's for Michael and for Ellen on your right-hand side, for Yaakov, acknowledging the important role and unique role of parent is on your left side. I'm going to have you recite the blessing with me. We'll do a couple words at a time, and then you'll do the tearing. Just take it from the bottom, tear it about 2/3 of the way up. Repeat after me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet. Blessed the Lord our God, ruler of the universe, for whom we're grateful for love and life that is shared. Go ahead, you can take the ribbon and just tear it from the bottom up. And Justin as well, you're wearing one. Very nice. Because we're a smaller crowd, I often will just have the family come first and place the earth. But I have the family come first, though, but everyone else can follow as well. You have a choice, by the way. If you would like to use gloves, you can utilize gloves here. There is antiseptic. I used it before and after I did the shoveling here. So whichever you're most comfortable with, Mount Sanai provides them for both. And we can do it from either side. There's shovels from either side. So just in a couple of minutes, we'll come back and we'll recite the Mourner's Kaddish together. By the way, as Ellen did, the custom is to take the shovel, not to hand it to the next person, but rather to place it back into the earth, leave it to the next person as they come forward. Okay. And anybody else who wishes can come at this point as well, and you can do it from the other side as well. Jim or Otter, anybody,
Do you mind if I go ahead and get the slide and put it in the honestly,
that's when I got it to this side.
Sergeant. Lich is the Yiddish word. They don't have one. And so, looking at that, just because the reason I'm asking is I've never heard a person use the word that. Here's what he said. He said, it was kind of it's Yiddish. It's German Yiddish. Absolutely. Yeah, but Yiddish really interpreted is like, you know, but the Germans don't apply it the same way, I don't think. Oh, okay. It's fine. What do you need? Gloves?
yeah.
Well, they have gloves. Oh, no, they have gloves. Oh, they ran out. Amanda ran out? Oh, okay. If you want, there's antiseptic. If there's
Yeah.
not again.
Had to take my sweater off.
You can join us back here. We're going to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. So Michael, Yaakov, Justin, and Ellen. Page 22 and 23. Those of you reciting page 22 or 23, find Hebrew transliteration. Those of us not reciting the words of the Kaddish by saying Amen, Brichu, any of those sections are the response and indicate that you're here to give strength and comfort to the family, to the mourners. So those reciting Kaddish join together. Amen. Yehesh me Rabam Barak, Le'olam u'me'omayim. Yiparak, Yishabach, Yipar, Yitolam, Yitnaseh, Yitatar, Yitalev, Yitama, Shmei, Dekudesha, Brichu, Le'elam, Minkol, Yirchata, Yeshirata, Tush V'chata, V'nechamata, Damiran, V'omad, Meru, Amen. Yehesh Lama Rabba Min Shemayim, L'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, Meru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, Meru, Amen. We know that there's no magic words. They don't work like that. The only greeting we have in the Jewish tradition is Hamakom Yenachem Echem B'Tov Sha'ar Av V'Eitzon Yerushalayim. You have strength and comfort. That's all we can do from God, from us as agents of God, to give you that strength of memory, life, and to help you each step of the journey. Where you have that strength and comfort with all the mourners of Jerusalem and Zion, as we all say. You want people to invite you? Yeah. So apparently, there's a lot of food back at the house. Is the way that. So. If you can do two mitzvahs here, right? You can the mitzvah of taking care of the mourners and sharing, being with them, and two, to help with a little bit of the food and to take care of that as well. And let's just keep telling great stories about Ken, right? Let's just keep being inspired by his deeds, not be overwhelmed by the sadness of loss, which is natural, but he doesn't want to be thought of that way. He just doesn't. He doesn't want to be felt sorry for. That's the last thing that he would live a great life to inspire. So let's keep him in that vein and in that way. All right, so those of you who wish to go back, yeah. Sorry, I can't do that.
Watch your old man fall down the hill.